Hey guys, I want to kick this video off by apologizing to you firstly for being quiet on the video front. I've actually been away for the last week or so. I've been staying out in rural Wales, so I had unfortunately basically no internet. I had enough internet to be able to get online to see and reply to the comments that you guys were posting. Unfortunately, in terms of upload speed, it was basically like being back on dial-up. So when I did attempt to put a video online, it took about 9 hours to upload. So that's why I've been quiet. However, in that time, you guys have been putting up a lot of comments on various different things. So I want to kind of use this video to address those comments that you've put up. Firstly, the green screen is gone. A few of you commented about the green screen not looking particularly professional. And I've had a think about it and I kind of agree with you. The main reason why I started using the green screen is because, well, this is the space I've got to work with. It's not particularly great. So my thinking behind using the green screen was that it would enable me to kind of give the perception of being in a bigger environment and not have to worry about the clutter in the background. But as it happens, the green screen didn't really work as well as I'd hoped. So now we go back to all my camera gear in the background, and the green screen is going to be reserved basically for the Photography 101 tutorials where I want to put animations up. So the green screen is going to help with that. Now, the big one, the full frame video. About 11 days ago, I published a video entitled, "Is Full Frame Really Worth It?" I'll link it up here if you want to go and see it. The video was basically a response to a question I'd had from somebody asking about buying a full frame camera. And in the video, I'd kind of alluded to whether full frame was really worth buying or not. And the video's gone absolutely crazy. It's had hundreds of comments from you guys. A lot of you saying that you don't think full frame's worth it and that there are better systems available, and some of you absolutely grilling the living hell out of me, suggesting that I have no idea what I'm talking about. So I want to clarify exactly what my standpoint is on full frame. I'm not saying that you shouldn't buy full frame. I'm not saying that you should only buy full frame. What I was saying was that there's no point buying full frame if you can't make the most of it. There are advantages to full frame, there are disadvantages to full frame. One of the big disadvantages to full frame is the cost of the body and the cost of the lenses being a lot higher than aps-c or micro four thirds because they have to be physically bigger and more complicated in the first place. So the original question was from a guy who basically had no experience with photography. So my point to him was, don't go spending 5 or 6 grand on a full frame camera straight from the get-go because you're not going to make the most of it. I have always maintained a good camera does not make you a good photographer. A good camera will only allow a good photographer to take potentially better photographs. So my point wasn't don't buy full frame ever. My point was he's not in a position to maximize full frame yet. But then a few of you were pointing out saying you don't need to buy a brand new full frame, you could buy a second-hand full frame. I have already got a video up called Advice for Beginners in which I kind of state, don't feel you have to go and buy a brand new camera because you'd actually be better off saving some of your money, buying a second-hand kit, and then using that extra money towards other accessories. So, yes, you're right, you could go out and buy a second-hand full-frame kit for less than you could buy a brand new one. But then the same argument also applies for crop sensor. You don't have to buy a brand new crop sensor. You could buy a second-hand, couple of years old one and save even more money. So it's still a circular argument. Regardless of which way you cut it, full frame is more expensive than aps-c. The reason why I suggested those current level cameras was because he was looking at current level full frame. So I was going current full frames versus current aps-c just to kind of express the price difference between those two systems. Then there was a few of you that had issue with the choices of lenses that I suggested for him. Then there was a few of you who agreed that an aps-c body was the right choice, but took issue with me suggesting aps-c only lenses, and that in fact I should have been recommending full frame lenses for him, so then that further down the line, if he wanted to transition from aps-c onto a full frame camera body, he already had the lenses waiting for him. And again, there's two sides to this. Yes, you're right in some respects that already having full frame lenses ready for when you want to transition from aps-c is easier, but you're also dealing with somebody who has no experience of DSLRs whatsoever, so isn't really going to be transitioning from aps-c to full frame for quite a number of years, by which point there'll probably be a new generation of lenses on the market. Plus, current full frame lenses are a lot more expensive, which is something else I was highlighting. Now obviously he could buy older generation second-hand full-frame lenses, but then he's going to run into the potential problem that further down the line when he finally upgrades to full frame, there's even more newer lenses available. He's probably not going to be happy with those full-frame lenses. I fell foul to this exact same thing when I first started in photography. I was originally shooting with Canon crop sensor cameras, and yet the only crop sensor lenses that I ever owned were the two kit lenses that came with it, an 18-55 and a 55-250. Following from that, I only ever bought full frame lenses, and on aps-c they did work okay. But as soon as you move on to a full frame camera, you start to see extra vignetting and softness in the corners that you never knew were there because the sensor couldn't pick them up. So straight away, I then started upgrading all the full frame lenses that I'd already bought to newer, better full frame lenses, which is more of a false economy than buying aps-c in the first place. Because if you buy aps-c in the first place, they're cheaper to buy, and then they'll still hold a value relatively well, and you can sell them on further down the line. So financially, buying full frame lenses for an aps-c body might not be as much of a saving as you might think. The other point was to do with the apertures of the lenses and the ISO performance. So there's no doubt that full frame versus aps-c with similar sorts of resolution, the full frame camera is going to have better image quality, is going to have better noise performance. That bit's not in dispute, but that's only apparent if you're shooting at the same ISOs. Now, the full frame lenses he was looking at were f2.8 lenses. So if he went with the same full frame lenses on an aps-c camera, he'd have to shoot at the same ISOs. And then predominantly, the aps-cs would exhibit more noise than the full frame. But the lenses that I suggested weren't f2.8, they were f1.8 lenses, which means that they were a stop and a third brighter than the full frame ones, which means that he can shoot a stop and a third lower ISO, so rather than shooting at 6400 ISO, he could be down at 2500. So in terms of noise performance, that would actually balance the two out. In terms of depth of field, same thing again. If you shot the aps-c a stop and a third brighter, the depth of field would actually be very, very similar. Then a few of you were complaining that I hadn't actually answered the question, is full frame worth it or not? And that's kind of the point. I can't answer that question because there is no one answer. If full frame was worth it, everybody would be buying full frame. If full frame wasn't worth it, then nobody would be buying full frame. It entirely depends on your circumstances. Are you shooting with an aps-c body and getting photos that you are happy with? Then there's no need to upgrade to full frame. If you're not happy with it, then it's a case of, what are you not happy about? Is it something that full frame could solve? How much is it going to cost you to switch to full frame? And do you think it's worth it for the results or not? So, I know plenty of people that photograph using aps-c bodies and don't want to spend the extra money switching to a full frame system because it's not going to benefit what they use. I know plenty of photographers who have had full frame systems and decided to downsize because they had full frame but it wasn't really giving them any real benefit for what they used, so wanted smaller and lighter kit, so downsized to either aps-c or micro four thirds. And I know other people, myself included, who have shot aps-c, decided that full frame was worth it, so have switched to full frame and been quite happy with it. So the point is that there's no right or wrong answer. Everything is subjective, is entirely up to you. All my recommendation was before you go charging headlong thinking, I need to get full frame, I need to get full frame, I'm not a real photographer if I'm not shooting full frame, was have a look what you can get from aps-c or Micro Four Thirds, because you might actually find it does a good enough job for what you need. It gives you the results that you're looking for a lot less money than what the full frame system can do. And then there was my absolute favourite comment from Rob Yorg, who put, "Big Ears is a vegan." And it's another one advice fits all. Did you notice he's not actually a photographer, more of a click my affiliate link kind of channel? Couple of points for you, Rob. Firstly, it's not a one advice fits all, because if it was, I would have either said, buy full frame or don't buy full frame. What I actually said was, don't charge headlong in spending a fortune on the top level cameras, because if you don't know how to use it, it's wasted money. Secondly, I'm curious to know as to what you would classify somebody who's been paid to do professional wedding shoots, commercial shoots, event photography, and is certified by Google to do 360 virtual tours, if nothing but a photographer. Thirdly, can somebody point out where the affiliation is on my channel, because I'm kind of missing it? And fourthly, do I look like somebody who only eats twigs and grass? That's it for me, guys. It wasn't a rant, it wasn't defensive, it was merely a lot of people commented, and obviously everybody has their own opinions and their own advice on situations. Somebody asked me for my advice, I gave them my opinion on the matter. If it doesn't agree with you, it doesn't agree with you. If it does, it does. It doesn't mean that anyone is right or anyone is wrong, apart from you, Rob. It's just that a lot of the comments that you guys were putting up didn't really sit right with what I was trying to say in the video. So I just wanted to put this video up to kind of clarify where my standpoint is on full frame. That it's not worth it or is worth it. It is worth it in certain situations. It's not if you're not going to make the most of it. I'm not trying to say anyone who buys a full frame camera is an idiot wasting their money, because I own full frame gear. That's not also to say that people who don't buy full frame aren't real photographers. I know plenty of photographers who shoot aps-c because aps-c covers what they need. It was simply a video answering a question that somebody had posed to me, and the situation that they were in didn't call for them to need to spend as much money as they were looking at spending for their first camera. Don't get me wrong, I absolutely love reading your comments, whether you agree with me or not. But after a week in Wales, that's a tongue twister. After a week in Wales with terrible weather, so I didn't really get the photos that I went there to shoot, I'm now back home, back in front of the camera, ready to make some more videos for you guys. So if you have any questions or queries or anything you want to know, leave a comment down below and I will see you in the next video.